'Cause I want to ask, kind of add to that as well. Like, obviously, that must have been one of those. But what have been some of the kind of the hardest moments you've had to deal with? Obviously, but that being one of them, I must have been like this being on tour when your son's being born. What other kind of moments have you found to be really difficult leading up to this moment?
Um, Running a small business is as difficult as it is for anyone running a small business, for all the things we've just mentioned. But also existing in creative economy, creative industries, which is about to be absolutely obliterated, kind of post lockdown. That's always a challenge. We're lucky in some ways, and we make a rod for our own back in other ways. We're lucky in the sense that we are small and we can be responsive, and we do have these relationships with funding bodies and organizations and clients. But then at the same time, we exist in an industry where if people don't want events, then they don't need events, or they can
Yeah.
put them on themselves. It won't be as good as the events we put on, I can guarantee you that, but there's still events. Likewise, people could get in people who are not as good as us to do, education or youth projects or whatever, and that's calm. I get it, but the daily fight to survive on a month-to-month basis is difficult. We're not too bad at the moment, but that's because kind of accounting wise, I basically do my teaching, and that money also comes into the business. So I am also subsidizing the business through my own kind of extracurricular work. So otherwise, there's a chance that Lyrix Organix may not be here. So that's difficult. We've always been around zero or just above in terms of our cash flow. And that is the most difficult thing, because when you want to put on events and you want to book X, Y, and Z artists, one thing that we're committed to is being fair to all artists. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are able to fund them a fair fee all the time. And that really, really pains me as a promoter, as someone who feels a responsibility. It pains me to underpay artists, and it happens all the time. It happens all the time across our whole sector. I'm sure you feel the same way too. And there's a guilt that comes with it, absolutely. And so I guess that's partly also going back to the origins of Lyrix. One of the reasons we wanted to make it a charity event with a strong ethos, and one of the reasons we wanted to make it a kind of a family kind of energy, is because we knew that we could offer fees in the same way as others. So we had to offer other things like kind of support, network, causes, and things that didn't have a monetary value. So there was an element of it which was kind of realizing that money is our weakness and is our weakness. How do we kind of...
Here we go. I'm so sorry about everybody. It cut out for some reason. On my side, it's my fault. But you mentioned about this, or the hardest moments you found about running your own company and the moments you've led up to this moment.
Yeah, I mean, one of the hardest things about running a company, without a doubt, is money. We're an organization that kind of exists on a breadline. We kind of float above or around zero. It's a consequence of not being a fully kind of business-minded organization, because we're about the community, arguably more so, to our own detriment in some ways. It was never designed to be this kind of a business. If we did, we would have made very different decisions. But I guess the most challenging thing about that disposition is wanting to pay artists more consistently. And that's one of the difficulties, is that the reality as a grassroots promoter is that, and especially with a kind of accelerated live music economy where bigger, quicker, and ask for more money, and so they should. But unfortunately, that is part of a economic system within the live music industry that is heavily weighted towards the corporates, and that's a very unbalanced position to be in, to find ourselves at the bottom of the pyramid, as it were. And so it pains me a lot of the time, not being able to pay the artists the fees that we want to, but that is why we what makes Lyrix Organix unique in the sense that we've built a community, we've built a family. You know, the causes and the social action that we build and create with our artists is what kind of creates a value beyond money. So it's difficult because at the end of the day, you know, I don't get paid very much money, you know, at all. But that's not anything that an artist needs to be concerned about. They're not going to ask me about my pay unless I was, you know, rolling around in BMWs and gold watches, which I'm not. So it's, you know, there's constantly, I guess, a guilt factor of wanting to pay artists much more because, you know, we find artists with such incredible talents that they're worth much more than a basic musicians union fee, which in itself is fair. But, you know, if we could pay people what we value them to be, then we wouldn't exist because we'd be broke.